Hi guys, it's Silvarret again, and somebody requested me to do a Moby Steel Jungle tutorial, and I figured there are so many tutorials on YouTube on how to make supports using Moby Steel Jungle, but not actually explaining the set itself. So today I'm not going to explain how to make supports or buildings or use Moby Steel Jungle. I'm going to explain how the set works, so if you're new to it, that you can kind of understand it a bit more. So first of all, we've got the basic pieces, we've got the vertical pieces. Now there are 3 categories of vertical pieces and 3 versions of each one. First I'm just going to take the normal one. This is the one that you're going to want to use most of the time. We've got the bar vertical 1H. As you can see, this is a very low piece, can be stacked to create well, bigger parts, but I would recommend using this small piece just for well, sometimes you just need to use a small piece. And then there's the bar vertical H4, which is basically just 4 times this small piece. And if you're wondering what all that H number thing is about, this follows the same system that RCT3 has with the H system, whereas 1H is raising the terrain with, well, 1 level. So this is H1. As you can see, it's just as high as that piece of Moby Steel Jungle. And if I raise it 3 H's, it's going to be just as high as the H4. So that's the way that works. And then you could see that there was also the bar vertical extended, and that thing is very, very long, and it's perfect for supports. Hold on, I'm going to show it. So we've got the bar vertical 1H, that's this one. We've got the bar vertical H4, but then you've also got the extended one, and as you can see, this one is very long. You can pretty much raise this a lot. I'm not even going to count how many H's this is, but as you can see, it's very high. Now this is great for support of coasters, since you don't want to since if you don't care about the support just going on forever, and you want to create a very high support, it's better to just use a vertical extended one instead of stacking these H4s, because that's going to take quite a while. Now there are also the centerpiece, and this is what I'm talking about. You've got 3 different placements of pieces. We've got the well, the normal one, which has no name, but it's sometimes referred to as the corner piece. So if you've got sets, for example, and they say it's a corner, then it will conform to this placement. But there's also the centerpiece, which is over here, and that is in between 2 diagonal normal pieces, as you can see. So a normal piece is on these lines and in the middle of a tile, and the centerpiece is in the corners of the tile. Don't ask me why they call this a corner piece and this is center, because it's not really in the center. That is because the set uses a quarter tile placement, as you can see. So if you think of a quarter tile placement like this, then that's in the center. So that's that. And then there's also the edge piece, and this works the same way, except it's between 2 corner pieces on a horizontal line. So as you can see, it's like the centerpiece, but then on the line. So if I take another one of these corner pieces, you can see that the centerpiece is in in between 2 normal ones in a diagonal line, and the edge piece is in between 2 normal ones in a straight line. And one thing to know about the edge piece is the fact that it behaves in kind of a strange way because of its placement. As you can see, I can now place it only on these lines and not actually on the other lines. But if you rotate it, you'll be able to place it on these lines, but not actually on these lines. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can only use it on X or Y at the same time because of its strange placement. Okay, so that's the vertical things. Then we've got the horizontal things. They are just the normal things. We've got a normal horizontal bar and a quarter bar. I would recommend in any case just use this normal one, except if you just want to use a quarter bar somewhere to connect the coaster track to supports, for example. In any other case, the normal one is the best way to go if you want to create a large horizontal line. Same goes for the diagonal ones, works in the same way, except you've got a quarter piece and a normal piece. Okay then we've also got these slant bars. And this again works in the same way as the vertical ones. A 1H will go up 1H, as you can see. 2H is going to be twice as steep. We've got the 3H piece, the 3H piece, and the 4H piece. These are pretty much the low slanted bars, and also as you can see, the 1H and the 2H have a vertical ending, and the 3H has a horizontal ending, and the same goes for the 4H and the 8H and the 12H. So that's something to keep in mind. And as you can see, this H4 also has an edge placement, which works the same way as the vertical edge placement. As you can see, this is just to connect it to an edge support, because if you didn't have that little piece, you could never connect an H4 to a edge vertical support. And also, as you can see, the H4 also has that same extended thing, whereas it's just one big thing. So that's also very handy for supports. And yeah, same goes for these H8, which is twice as tall as the H4. Also has an edge piece and an extended piece, which is very useful for supports. And then there's the really steep one, which is, where is it? There's also an H12, yeah, that's over here for some reason, which is really steep. And this is really something for very high supports. Same for this piece, got an edge placement and an extended placement. And then we've got the diagonals, which work in the same way. So there's not really a need to explain that. But I would like to tell you to keep one thing in mind. These things are slightly less steep than the straight ones. And I can show that and explain you why that is. Because as you can see, this diagonal one seems to be a bit less steep than the horizontal one, because obviously this one needs to cover a greater distance and well, basically goes up to the same height. Now, something to keep in mind with this is that because of this, a straight horizontal H3 will kind of look just as steep as a diagonal H4. Even though this one goes up a little bit more, it kind of looks just as steep from the side. So that's something to keep in mind. If you use diagonal supports, I always like to make them just a little bit more steep than the straight ones, because then it looks like they're just as steep. Okay, now we've got some weird odds and ends in this set. For example, we've got the caps, and these caps are very useful to connect to a track. Also, very notable about these caps is their placements. I'm going to show that off in a moment. As you can see, they've got some weird placements. So, for example, the horizontal cap has an edge placement like this. So as you can see, the only way to connect it to that is using an edge support. And similar to that, the diagonal one has a center placement. So if you've got, for example, a corner support and you want to connect that to a cap, the best way to do that is using these horizontal quarters, because using those you're able to connect them to a corner piece. So that's the way to do that. Now with these vertical caps, it's basically the same story. We've got a normal one, which is supposed to be used for a corner piece, and we've got a center one and an edge one. So that kind of works in a similar way. However, there are also offset pieces for all of these, and these are slightly lower pieces. Now, I found that to be most useful when you're building a coaster and the coaster is kind of low and you want to connect it without going through the track. Sometimes this offset piece works as a connector, but it might also be useful in other things. I don't know, it's up to you to do that. Okay, so then we've got the flanges, and there are many different pieces. First of all, we've got the diagonal piece. Now this goes on a corner placement, on either in the middle of the tile or on the lines, and then we've also got the center piece, which works the same way as the vertical center piece. It goes over there. We've got the horizontal piece with a normal placement and an edge placement, and then we've got the vertical flanges, which have the same placement as the vertical poles, a vertical one, an edge one, and a center one. And then we've got the slanted flanges for the 4H thing, the 8H support, and the 12H finally. Though to be fair, if you really want to be lazy, and most people probably won't notice, you can also use a vertical piece for the 12H. It doesn't make too much of a difference. I'm a perfectionist and I've got OCD, so I always like to use the 12H piece for that. But if you're lazy and you're already supporting loads of vertical beams, you can always do that to save a little bit of time. Now, as you might notice, there are no 3H, 2H, and 1H flanges, so you're gonna have to come up with a solution for that. Well, thankfully I've got that. For a 1H, horizontal works. 2H is kind of a hard thing, but horizontal just kind of works. It's the only piece you can use for it. And then for 3H and slanted flange, 4 comes closest to that, so I always like to do that. So that's the way that works. You might also want to try using a 4H for a 2H because it's slightly tilted, but I like to use a vertical one more than that because as you can see, the transition is vertical. Now you've also got the flange angle, which is a diagonal piece, so you must always remember that slant is horizontal and angle is diagonal, as you can see. So for diagonal supports like these, you just have to use the angled ones, and the same rules apply as for the slanted ones. It works in exactly the same way, only it's diagonal. Now something that often happens when you're building with Moby Steel Jungle is you get this little not so smooth transition from one piece to another. So for that there are the knuckle pieces. We've got the regular knuckle, which fits on the regular supports. We've got the center knuckle for the center supports, and the edge knuckle for the edge supports, and whatever you want to build. And then if you've got, for example, an inverted thing like this, there is even an inverted knuckle for cases like that. And if you combine an inverted knuckle and a normal knuckle, you can create a little ball like that. It's nothing too special, but sometimes it might be useful for some things. For example, the end of a support. If you want to have the ending of a support to be smooth, like this, then you can always make a little ball like that, and then add whatever kind of horizontal beam you want to add to it, and that also works. Okay, so those are all the pieces in Moby Steel Jungle 1. I'm not going to cover Moby Steel Jungle 2. It works in exactly the same way, except the knuckle is already a ball like this, and the supports are slightly thicker. I prefer No Limit. I prefer Moby Steel Jungle 1, but some people prefer Moby Steel Jungle 2, and it might be useful. Some slightly thicker poles, so you might use that for buildings or bigger coasters, stuff like that. And one last thing, because something that often confuses people, is the fact that you cannot hook up these horizontal ones to the centerpiece, and this is indeed impossible. There is no way you can do this, and the same goes for the diagonal piece and the edge piece, simply because these offset placements just don't really work. So yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. So I'm sorry. There is, however, a Moby Steel Jungle add-on, which is huge. You might get lost in that set, but if you really want all the flexibility you can get, there is an add-on with all the other pieces. It's got H5, H6, H7, all that kind of stuff. You get more placement, center pieces that are straight, stuff like that. But it will put 8 more sets in, or maybe even more, yeah, maybe like 13 or 14 more sets in your custom scenery folder. It's an entirely huge set. You might get lost in it, but then again, it's very flexible. But yeah, this was the tutorial for Moby Steel Jungle. I hope you enjoyed and learned something, and thanks for watching.